Okay, we're at the top of the hour. Welcome, everyone. I am Mike Ward. I want to talk to you about connecting ServiceNow instances to Microsoft 365 email addresses. First off, hi, I'm Mike. I'm the director of architecture at ForeverHuman.ai. We're a small boutique ServiceNow partner. I'm going to go quick. We have a ton to cover today. At the end of this session, I'm going to post a link to a YouTube video that I cover the exact same content, but in 35 minutes. So if this is all a little bit too fast and you want to see some things that I don't demo, that video is available afterwards. So really, we have three paths to connecting email to M365. And why do we want to do that in the first place? There's a bunch of advantages. The biggest one being you can use a custom email address. It's not your instance name at servicenow.com. And the authentication and like the SPF, and if your company has external emails have that warning banner on them, then this can bypass all of that, and it comes from kind of inside the house. So, three main methods to do that. One, basic authentication. This is considered legacy. Microsoft's deprecated it on inbound email. They're deprecating it on outbound email soon. Don't bother with it. It's pretty bad. The second one is using SMTP or IMAP to send and receive over OAuth 2.0. So I call this kind of today's default. It works pretty well. It's relatively secure. This is not being deprecated. However, these SMTP and IMAP protocols are relatively old by now. So, there's newer stuff coming down the pipe. And the setup's a little bit complex. You need a licensed user with a service account and that kind of thing. And then the new model here is using this Graph API. So it still wraps around OAuth. It's quite secure, but it's all just REST calls. And you don't need to fiddle with some of the SMTP stuff. But the permissioning on it is quite a bit more complex. And that's the main one we're going to demo today. So going into a little bit deeper dive on all three, the basic authentication, not going to talk about it much. It's mostly deprecated, fully deprecated as of December of this year. Bad, don't bother. This SMTP method, so you need some plugins. First, you need this com.glide.email.oauth plugin. You need to set up an OAuth entity. You need to set up some permissions here. I don't have time to demo the setup tip to tail, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. And I generally do this with a service account connecting to one or more shared mailboxes. And you only need to license the service account there, not the shared mailboxes, which is nice. So what this looks like in practice, so I've got a ServiceNow instance, I've got an Entra instance, and the whole point of the session is to show you what both sides look like. A lot of ServiceNow practitioners don't get to see the Entra side or the Exchange side, and I find it really useful to be able to walk clients through that, or partners, customers of ServiceNow. So within Entra, in order to do this middle IMAP and SMTP over OAuth version, we need an app registration. So portal.azure.com, app registrations. I've pre-created this one because I just want to show you what it looks like. ServiceNow, email, IMAP, and SMTP. Really, it's just as simple as hit new. You need to give it a redirect URI here. So this is your instance / OAuth redirect.do. That's pretty easy. You come in here, you need to give it some API permissions. It comes with user.read. You need to add these three: imap.accessuser.all, smtp.send, and offline access just lets you kind of keep the tokens around for a long time. So that setup, you do need to provide admin consent for these as well, or whoever has access will do that. Then on the certificates tab, you'll need to create a new certificate, give it a value. The value is kind of hidden after the first time, so copy it the first time. And really, that's kind of it. You'll need this client ID here. The client secret will be that secret, and you'll need some of these endpoints to put in ServiceNow. On the ServiceNow side, what that looks like is, you come in here, you want to start with a new OAuth registry. So this is application registry. As I said, I've pre-created this one. I'm going to demo the graph one fully tip to tail. So give it a name. This client ID here is this application client ID. The client secret is the secret value here that you have. And then you want to use authorization code because you're going to sign in as a service account. These authorization and token URLs, these are the ones from endpoints, OAuth 2.0, authorization endpoint, that's the URL for auth, that's the URL for tokens. So you paste that all in, and then you get a default profile. You need to create some scopes. There's a little trick here. Create the scope. It needs to have HTTPS in front of it. This is as per an article that ServiceNow put out, which is honestly a pretty good article. I'll put the link in the chat right now, walking through this path, configure SMTP and IMAC email accounts with OAuth 2.0. So they give you these scopes that you need. You only need 3. You don't need offline access here. They do need to be associated to this profile, like so. And then you're done on the OAuth side. Go create your email account. I like this LBO trick to match this to mailboxes. Come into email accounts, and then you'll want one for receiving and one for sending. Come here. This one, I've already done this, so I have a token already. You can, if you ever need to kind of troubleshoot, you just go tokens, manage tokens. You can come in here and clear out your current tokens so you can get new ones. I'll just delete these tokens. Come back to the mailbox here. And then you need to hit this authorize email account access. This is going to prompt you to log in to the service account that has permissions to the mailbox. I'll talk a little bit about permissions still. You generally want to do this all in an incognito window because you don't want it to pick up your personal M365 login. You want to use the service accounts login. So you do this in incognito, hit your instance login.do, come to this page, and then you log in as the service account. For me, my service account is my personal account. So I'm just going to hit go. It grabbed a token. That's fine. Test connection. This should work. Connection successful. Beauty. And then on the next one, you need to get tokens for both sides. Authorize it. I got some tokens. I hit test connection. We're done there. A couple of troubleshooting steps. You need to make sure that the service account has permissions to send and receive from the account. There's a few different things for that. One of them, this is Exchange admin. Here, this is my shared mailbox. You need delegation set, so send as, I need to be in there. And read and manage full access, I need to be in there. So this is for sending, that's for receiving. That's important. There's one other thing to check, which I'm going to hop into PowerShell for, which I need to use for the graph side of things anyways. So in PowerShell, well, this is just my command prompt, but I'm going to open up PowerShell. I'm going to connect to Exchange Online. You generally would not have this permission, but the point is to show you what it looks like so you can help someone who would have permission. Once you're connected up here, you want to just get the mailbox, and this identity is really, the front part of the email address there. I just want to get the mailbox. And here you're looking for 2 things. One is IMAP enabled on the mailbox, yes, and is SMTP client authentication disabled, false. You want to be able to do SMTP auth, you want to be able to do IMAP, so this needs to be true, that needs to be false. If those 2 things are set, you should be good, and you have the permissions, and the service account is licensed. Here, keep in mind, this is the service account I'm using. This is the email address that it's sending from, and then the user label is just, what do you want on the from kind of friendly name to show up as. So that is the very speedy version of SMTP and IMAP over OAuth. Now, the kind of new fancy one is this Graph API over OAuth. So I like this for a couple of reasons. One, just dealing with REST calls is much easier. They show up in the outbound HTTP requests because it's just HTTP calls. You don't need a service account here, so you don't need any licensed mailboxes. These can all just be shared mailboxes. Also, the permissions are quite a bit kind of more narrowly scoped. There's a couple ways to do the permissions. The nicest one is this PowerShell tool with creating a service principal and using RBAC. So I'll walk through that. You also can give the app registration lots of permissions, like to read all the mailboxes and scope it down on the Exchange side. I don't like that as much because you're failing to lots of permission, and I would rather fail at the smallest possible permission, right? So I'll walk you through all that. There's a second plugin you need, also com.glide.email.graph, and critically, sending email via graph is only supported in Australia and further forward. Sending email is not supported in Zurich or earlier. But Zurich, you can receive in graph. Australia, you can both send and receive via graph. Okay, so let's go set this up. So I have pre-created this app registration, but really done nothing with it. This is the graph send and receive app reg. I've got everything. There's no API permissions apart from what came with it by default. There's no secret. All I did was this redirect URL. Most of the work here is going to be done in PowerShell in order to give permissions to it. So I've got commands. These commands are all in the description of the YouTube video that I will link at the end of it, but I'll walk through them a little bit. So we create a new service principal. This app ID that I create, you get that not from the app registration, but you need to go to Enterprise Applications and find the Enterprise application with the same name as the app registration you made, and then go into it and you'll find the application ID and the object ID. Those two IDs are used in a lot of these PowerShell commands. So that's the app ID, that's the object ID. And then just give it any display name that you want. Created a new service principal. The second one is we need to make a new management scope. So this name is the name of the management scope. That's important. And this is where you say what the email address you want this scope to be attached to. So I'm going to give permissions that tie this application to this email address, right? So you can do multiple email addresses. That's just kind of a PowerShell syntax to give it multiple ones there. But I've created a new scope to hold these permissions. Then I add the permissions to the scope. So I want to give it the application mail.readWrite permission. This thing, it says app. This is actually the object ID from above, which is that object ID over there. And the scope name is the name of the scope that you created up here. So now it has mail.readWrite. Now I'm going to give it mail.send. It's got mail.send. And now I just want to do a little test. So does this service principal have access to read and write from that mailbox? Yes, it does. Amazing. I'm going to test that it doesn't have access to read and write from my mailbox. It does not. Perfect. Once these are done, we're done on the permissions. Not that bad. It can take a while to propagate. If this test works, you should be fine in 30 to 60 minutes. And I'm hoping that for today, it propagates quickly. So on the Entra side, now we need to go back to the app registration for graph send and receive. We're going to need this client ID, and I need to go make a new OAuth app reg. So application registration, new. I don't want the simplified one, just connect to a third-party provider. Call this M365 graph email. The client ID is the client ID. The client secret, you need a new token, just come to client secrets, new client secret, graph email. Copy this value. That goes in there. These auth URLs are the ones from the overview and endpoints. So this 2.0, that auth URL, this token URL. Apologies, this is quick. I know it's a 15-minute presentation. And you want to use client credentials this time because there's no Surface account, there's no login, it's just this app registration. You get a default profile, create the scopes. There's only one scope to create here. It's .default. That was the label. This is the actual scope. Save that up again. Go to profiles. I need to associate that scope to this profile. I use this little picker because you need to get the exact OAuth provider. The first record won't work. Second record will because it was related to the profile I generated. Save that up. Now my OAuth is done. I rapidly go create an email account, new email account, graph M365 receive. I now have a type. If the plugin's installed, you get type of receive. Fantastic. No need for a server, none of that kind of stuff. What I do need is the email address here, which is this one. And then I select the OAuth profile I just created, which is graph. Save this up. Authorize the email account, should just grab a token right away. Hit test connection. Connection successful. Bam. We were receiving email over Graph API. I'll do one quickly for sending. Graph send. SMTP Microsoft Graph send, not SMTP, excuse me. This user label is something like, service desk from this email address. OAuth profile is the graph one I did recently. Save that. Authorize the account. Got a token. Test the connection. We're good. That's it. We did it. Troubleshooting steps. This stuff is notoriously hard. I've spent a lot of time on this. I've been burned by replication time. I've been burned by copy paste errors. There's a lot of fiddly parts to this with all the scopes and the addresses and all that kind of stuff. Double checking everything never hurts. If you're using IMAP and SMTP, check that those are both enabled. You could ask your admin, please, are IMAP and SMTP enabled both on the, like they only really need to be done on the mailbox. Some companies do it at the tenant level. And if you're using those, does the service account you're using have both full control and send as permissions? So with that, I will paste the full YouTube link into this chat. You're welcome to go there, see a 35-minute version, which is a little bit less hectic, and there's all the PowerShell commands in there and stuff too. I'm slightly over time, but I mostly did it. Thank you all for your attention.